Hi. Official recaps here.
The 6th of February 2004. Eric is currently staying at a winter cabin and has just gotten out of bed to start his day. While he's getting ready for the day, the radio sound in the background mentions that there would be a big storm coming up late this afternoon, but Eric is unaware of it. Eric continues by recalling his recent DWI arrest and car collision. We hear that Eric is battling his drug addiction and that he has 7 days to appear in court. He consequently now dwells in the shadow of his mother's dissatisfaction as a result of it. Eric decides to take a small amount of the illegal substance since he can't contain himself anymore. He swiftly prepares to go snowboarding as the day goes on. He regrettably misses the bus that would have taken him to the snowboarding area. After that, Sarah, a total stranger who later turns out to be a ski patrol agent, gives Eric a ride up the mountain. They then arrive at the location that would serve as Sarah's job and Eric's skiing location. He thanks her and bids her farewell before taking a gondola up a ski hill and stealing a little more of the illegal substances. Then Eric starts to snowboard down the slope. He's too busy having fun to notice how the weather is gradually changing. After that, Eric calls his mother to let her know that he is on the road to recovery. On the other hand, Sarah, who hears about the storm, immediately contacts the crew at the top and discusses the possibility of closing the mountain early. Returning to Eric, he is still snowboarding despite the deteriorating visibility up there. Unfortunately, when he prepares to turn around, he discovers that the wind has increased, which obscures any ski tracks in his path and prevents him from finding his way back. He checks his phone and there's no mobile service anywhere, which aggravates him. Eric now understands that he is lost and continues to walk until he finds cover under a tree. He feverishly tries to light a match to create a fire, but fails miserably as the temperature drops precipitously. Eric thinks back to a time when his father taught him how to play hockey and encouraged him to never give up in the face of adversity. He is inspired to move by this and attempts to navigate his way back by snowboarding down the next hill he encounters. But all that does is send him careening over the cliff's edge. Eric continues to travel despite being lost and eventually comes face to face with 2 wild wolves that howl menacingly at him. This causes him to raise his snowboard and yell to frighten the wolves, and it succeeds in doing so. But soon after, he starts to hear wolf howls all around, so he starts running frantically till he is far away from them. He excavates a hole and enters it to warm up. As he lies here, he drifts off to sleep while recalling yet another recollection from his childhood, this one being the time he witnessed his parents arguing. The following morning, Eric tries to figure out the best route back to the resort by guessing the direction of the route he took the night before. It doesn't take long for him to become frustrated with this process, though, and he eventually comes to terms with the truth that he is entirely lost and unsure of everything. He has no choice but to snowboard his way down another hill out of desperation and still ends up in the middle of nowhere with nothing to eat but a bag of nose candy. He swims back up after getting it, and fortunately, he makes it out again. He keeps moving even as his condition deteriorates, stopping by a pile of boulders to rest and nearly collapsing from the cold. He peels off because he fears developing hypothermia in his damp clothes. Additionally, he observes that a wound on his shin, probably brought on by the fall, worsens. In this moment of weakness, he is tempted to take more of the drug to numb the agony, but he remembers that he must have his head clear in order to survive, so he throws the remaining candy to the ground instead. The night falls, showing us that Eric has remained curled up bare this entire time and is still adamant about returning home. As he starts to gather his belongings, he notices a pair of lights coming from the resort off in the distance. It's clear that Eric is happy to see this. He falls asleep that night while gazing at the resort's lights and wakes up the next morning prepared to go. He pulls a drink from his candy bag, indicating that he has been using his body heat to melt snow. But because he hasn't eaten in 2 days, Eric begins to feel sleepy and soon finds himself spitting out blood. He trips and falls to the ground, where he remains until dawn the following day. Day 4 after getting lost. When he finally wakes up, he finds that his sock has frozen over his wound. Eric tries to rip it off, but as we've come to anticipate, in the process he also tears some flesh. He resumes his journey to the building he last saw the previous night despite the agony. To his surprise though, the structure is not present, indicating that he has been having hallucinations about it. He realizes this and is frustrated. When night falls, he finds cover under a tree. Eric pulls out his phone in the hopes of finding mobile coverage, but it is entirely dead. His unaware mother calls him in the meantime, leaving a sad message in which she expresses her desire to support him on his road to recovery. Day 5. Eric notices that his wound now seems to have gotten worse as he takes another look at it. He starts to peel more of the sock off of his skin and then begins to eat the frozen flesh that came off. While this is going on, he thinks back to a memory from his past in which he ends up living in her mother's basement after losing his hockey-playing job and likely spending all of his money on drugs. His mother enters and tells him she wants to help him but that he must let her in after he thrashes the furniture in frustration. Eric returns to the present and pulls out a radio-emitting device in the hopes that someone would spot him. The following day, on the 6th day after he went missing, Eric's worried mother calls a friend of his and asks where he might be because he missed a crucial court date for the DWI. After finding out Eric's winter cabin's address, the mother makes the decision to go there herself. On the other hand, Eric is in the thick of a blizzard and desperately tries to catch a radio signal, but is unable. He has no choice but to continue walking. The mother visits Eric's winter cabin on the 7th day and is visibly upset to see that all of the food has frozen solid, indicating that Eric hasn't turned on the heating in some time. She immediately leaves as a result and goes to the ski patrol station where she informs Sarah that she believes her son may be missing. When the mother gives Sarah a photo of Eric, Sarah immediately identifies him and calls for a search and rescue team. She boards a chopper and launches a hunt for Eric. Eric, who is currently traveling through the enormous mountains with all of his remaining energy, is still searching for a radio signal. He starts shouting for help in the hopes that someone will hear him when all of a sudden he starts to hear the sound of the helicopter's propeller. Sadly, Sarah misses him and passes by as he crawls to an open area. Eric is left lying down feeling more helpless than ever after the helicopter hunt ends in failure. At this time, he thinks of his mother and tells himself to keep fighting since she wouldn't want him to give up in such a way. Eric's mother has chosen to spend the night at the station, where she is joined by Sarah, who soberly advises her that they must call off the rescue in the evening since it becomes unsafe outside. They share a touching moment that makes the mother sad and makes Sarah even more desperate to find her son. On the 8th day, Eric consumes some more of his previously frozen flesh while once more looking for a radio signal. The helicopter pilot at the patrol station informs Sarah that there is no use in putting forward a search and rescue team because no one can endure this particularly brutal winter for more than 4 days. Sarah coldly accepts after hearing this that Eric might not be alive when they find him after all. When we return to Eric, he can now hear the radio conversations of the search and rescue crew, albeit very faintly. This drives him to continue climbing the mountain despite the radio's radio having little to no battery. Finally, with absolutely no strength left, he falls to the ground and almost faints. With only 2% of the charge remaining, he simply lies down and records a message for his mother on the radio, not knowing at all if anyone is even listening. Before going unconscious, he says in the message that he loves his mother and is resigned to his fate. A patrol officer back at the station tells Sarah that they just momentarily picked up a signal coming from one of the mountains, so Sarah immediately boards a helicopter. They eventually come across Eric unconscious on top of the mountain. He is saved in time when the crew comes to his help and brings him back to base. When they get back, the mother rushes up to the chopper and saves her son's life by giving him a bear hug. The film ends with showing us Eric in present time, giving a motivational pep talk to children. He's got his legs amputated from the frostbite, but despite it all, we can clearly see that he's now in a better place and living his best life.
If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button and subscribe for more videos like this.